Hi, my name is Michaela Murphy, and today I'm going to be talking about my day using a wheelchair. So my experiences that I had in this day in a wheelchair were I just lived my life like normal. I went to my classes on campus, I went to the dining hall, I went to my dorm, and I went to Walmart. So before I started my time in the wheelchair, I was really nervous to go around campus all day in it. I thought that the hardest part about this project was going to be actually using the wheelchair and pushing myself around campus, but I really think the hardest part was how much more I thought about what I was doing. I had to think about the extra time it would take me to get to places, the extra help I would need if I couldn't open a door or anything. I felt like I really had to be more apologetic to others if they like for example, if someone held open the door for me, usually I would just say thank you, but this time in the wheelchair I was like, oh, sorry you had to wait for me or something like that. I felt like I was drawing more attention to myself, not because I was doing anything, but because I was just automatically different than most of the people around me. After I completed my day in the wheelchair, I started noticing places around campus that maybe weren't as wheelchair accessible as they should be. And I really became more conscious of how difficult life is for someone that uses a wheelchair because they aren't automatically thought about when planning buildings or sidewalks. I'm also really grateful for my ability to walk because it's really hard for your body to adjust to being in a wheelchair, especially that quickly. My shoulders hurt a lot the next day, and remembering to adjust every few seconds was really difficult. So a big part of this project that I wasn't necessarily expecting was how different I was treated using a wheelchair versus not using a wheelchair. I didn't really notice that people were looking at me until one of my friends was walking with me down the pedestrian. He said, Michaela, do you notice that more people are looking at you today? And I didn't really notice, but for the rest of the day, I did notice, and it's really weird because you're just trying to live your life. People who use a wheelchair, this is just something that they go through the motions with every day, and it's weird for people to look at you all the time. People even treated me differently to my face, which I wasn't really expecting. When I went to get breakfast in Landrum, all of the workers were so nice to me. Not that they're ever very mean, but it just seemed like more people were saying good morning and asking me if I needed help with anything, which I was definitely not expecting. In the scene that you just saw, I went up a ramp in the Natural Sciences building, and the button to open the door was broken, and a girl came and opened the door for me and asked me how I was doing today, told me good morning, which usually that wouldn't happen just talking to a random person. When we went to Walmart that day, I was texting while trying to wheel in my wheelchair at the same time, and I ran into a lady's shopping cart, and I apologized to her because obviously I should have been paying attention to where I was going, but when I apologized to her, she said, oh, you don't need to be sorry. I thought this was really weird because if I would have just ran into someone walking, then they wouldn't have given me that same reaction. So even though most buildings on campus are technically wheelchair accessible, I did notice how hard it was to get around the buildings and get around campus. The Natural Sciences building has a super steep ramp, and the door at the top of the ramp doesn't level out. So you have to break your wheelchair and try to open the door at the same time. If the button to open the door would have been working, this wouldn't have been that bad, but unfortunately the button is broken. It's really hard to open any doors on campus, getting into my dorm, getting into my bedroom, that was really hard. And it's really hard to get through crowds, in Walmart. I felt because I was sitting so much lower than the average person, it was hard to get through busy aisles. And you can't go places as easily by yourself when you're using a wheelchair. Most of the time, if I needed to go to Walmart, I would just drive there myself, but I couldn't really do that going through the parking lot and just getting my wheelchair in and out of my car. So in my future career in public health, I want to work more in the community aspect of things, and a big part of my job is going to be making sure everyone in the community is provided the same opportunities and education. And I'm really glad that I did this project because I'm going to have a much better understanding of how to help individuals that use a wheelchair, and I'm definitely going to make sure that I'm more vocal about my advocacy for individuals with disabilities. I'll definitely make sure that my future workplace is fully accessible, not only for wheelchairs, but for people who are blind, people who have like sensory disorders, things like that. So during this presentation, I know I talked a lot about how much more difficult my day was using a wheelchair versus not, but I wanted to include an excerpt from a podcast in my conclusion, and the podcast title is "My Wheelchair Makes Me a Human." And this just really sums up how much easier life is for individuals with disabilities who do use wheelchairs, and how much easier the wheelchair makes their life. I think we focus a lot on like feeling bad for people who use wheelchairs, but actually it's a really good thing that they can have that in their lives. So here it is.
My friends and my family couldn't believe that I wanted to make the transition into a wheelchair, because they just thought that wheelchairs were for old people that kind of shied away and were retired. And I was always excited about getting in a wheelchair and actually preparing myself and moving forward and being active.
Wheelchair freed, George, not wheelchair bound, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. A wheelchair really is kind of my main tool. It is my shoes. It is an extension of myself, and so it is the only thing that opens the doors. But saying that, I never really was excited about a wheelchair. It was a tool to get me from A to B, and then I realised, like so many people, that you can that there are providers like Whiskers out there which ensure that you can customise the colour, the measurements, and actually the whole process can be centred around you and your family, who are the experts on your own condition. And I now absolutely love my chair, and I embrace showing it off. You know, it's a part of me, and I guess it's like a guide dog or any kind of assistive thing. You know, it makes me a human. It's actually quite a human apparatus, I think. You know, the day I received it was really the first time I thought, do you know what? I'm a human being, and I'm going to live life like the rest of you. And you know, it's not them versus us, but you know, I have always been comfortable in the skin I'm in, but it made me realise that I can fulfil my potential.